whoops, I forgot my lighting. I'm kind of in the dark here. I think I should maybe talk amongst
Halloween.
yourselves.
It's kind of a Halloween look.
Yeah. So, Eric, do your song and dance here. Tell me, we got Captain Eric here, and we got Flight Attendant Diane and First Officer Dieter, and I'm going to put my lighting up.
As soon as he does his, I realize that I'm in the shade too. So when he starts talking tonight, then I'll turn mine on. But we're gonna review our class in Burbank on the 20th and 21st. I believe 20th is our trip up to Air Hollywood. Yep. And we're going to fly on the 21st. And if you can attend, that's awesome. We have 10 people. And if you cannot attend, you'll be able to do the Air Hollywood.
But if you can, we're going to show you a way that you can be there anyway.
We're gonna do that virtually from Air Hollywood. So that'll allow you to do some participating there. And that's our number one agenda item.
And we're all going to be there.
Yay.
Yes, we all are. So that's pretty fun.
Welcome everybody.
Now that Eric has a Harry Potter trick up his sleeve with
I know he's got an invisibility cloak.
I had a lighting issue too. I realized that I was shaded as Ron was.
It's not bad.
All right, what else do we have cooking tonight, Ron?
Okay. Funny you should ask. We're going to talk a little bit about, let's see if I can get promise to play. And I think if I share my screen, get this right the first time. Voila.
There we go.
Okay. Okay. And there we are. So tonight we're going to talk about the 301. We had a major change in there, and we'll discuss that. We're going to talk about the live stream and encourage you strongly to participate, no matter where you are in the world. If there's not much in the news in the aviation world this week. I saw a couple of fun little articles about, written by a flight attendant about how to make your trip the best and stuff like that, but stuff that Diane's talked about before, so I didn't bother putting that in there. And as always, questions, please leave a comment if you're attending tonight or if watching the replay even. And of course, we really want you to get into the Birds of a Feather group. We got to be close to 1,500 now. And I get people who end up doing a lot of things. Flying, number one, they set up 15-minute coaching calls with me, and in general get help and support mutually from others in the class there. So take advantage of this. You go to this link here and you can join the Fearless Flight Birds of a Feather Facebook group. Okay. All right. LA still on, bigger and better. Phoenix, we did not have enough interest, so we decided to cancel the October 28th. I got a couple of people I'm working with to try to accommodate them, meet their needs if they had flights coming up and whatnot. But it's full on for Los Angeles, the Los Angeles area, and that'll be on October 21st. We, as Eric alluded to, will be out there on the night before returning for the first time to the Air Hollywood studios. The new studios where our good friend Talat has moved and reopened following not only the couple of years of the pandemic, which he took a beating on because the movie industry, of course, was shut down. But then he no more than got started, and then they had the writer's strike and the actor's strike. And I saw they just finally signed the final agreement yesterday or something like that. So anyway. If you have any interest, I've still got a couple of people asking about joining the class in Los Angeles. It's a really nice sized group. We get the full support of Nico Dibble out there, the station manager at Burbank. It's a fun day. It's a fun and productive day for everybody who comes and hopes to leave their fear flying on the ground. It's a great class. It is the ultimate class. There's no better way to get over your fear of flying and to validate it than by getting in an airplane and just doing it. And this is our link if you would like to live stream, please do so. It not only will you be able to live stream, but you'll be able to get a replay of that. I wrote down just some of the advantages of a live streaming. If you haven't done that before, it's really cool because everybody gets has access to it. And in the studio, I'm the only one of the group here that's seen the new studio, but Talat has a really cool wide-bodied airplane, 2 aisles, and the front end is open, so we can really get some realistic training in there. It'll be a great advantage for all the people who are flying with us who can attend over there. We've got actually a couple of people who live in the LA area who are not flying, but they're going to come to the event just to have some of the realism there. And if you are, not only can you access it, if you live in East Overshoe.
There you go. Very good.
East Overshoe, yeah.
Wisconsin.
Even those of you in East Overshoe can attend, and you can attend in your PJs. That's the cool thing. Flexible, you can't get more flexible than that, and it is interactive, so you'll be able to ask questions and participate in the activity there if you want. Cost effective, you can't beat that. You don't have to spend a dime for gas, and like I said, we'll be recording it, and if you sign up for it, you'll get the access to the replay, which you can use for your own briefing in the future. A lot of people like anonymity when we do the monthly coaching classes, of course, and remind me to say a special word about that, Dieter, because this definitely affects that. And probably the biggest thing is a sense of community, not only that you'll see and observe with the people that are there with us in the studio, but also you'll get a sense yourself of how valuable it is to make a flight like this with a group of similarly and like-minded people out there. It's eco-friendly. If you're interested in that, you don't have to burn any gas, and it's the learning environment really adapts to your needs. So please consider live streaming if you would. We would love to have you there. The one thing we wanted to say is, for anybody who is coming to or thinking about attending this month's monthly live coaching webinar, we are going to do a special one, and we are going to move it to Friday night. Since we're going to be on the road during the regular time on Thursday, we're going to move the Thursday coaching session to Friday night, and we're going to it's going to be from 6 to 8. It's going to include the live stream. So those of you who are already enrolled for the coaching event will get it complimentarily. And
so that includes all the tiers in the Fearless Flyer Club, as well as in case you are currently an active student in our 201 class online course, then you actually get an email with the link to join us on Friday, October 20th. So not on the Thursday as usual, but this time live from Air Hollywood. So let me just see. Oh, here's a question. Oh, somebody said, well, that's great that you point out all the positive aspects of live streaming, but can I come physically on the Friday but not fly on the Saturday? And I'm gonna say this: just send us an email. Send an email to Capt Ron at FearlessFlight.com, and if you want to attend live in person at the Air Hollywood studios, but don't want to fly with us on Saturday. So
and I think I mentioned we already have a couple of people doing that.
Yeah.
Just that they want to come and experience the environment there. So
You'd be very welcome. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else along that line?
Let me just look through the Wait, it looks like Jim Duke is already on a cruise again. Jim, are you on a cruise?
Jeez. Why do you even have a house payment, Jim, or a house? I can see no reason for you. You're never home.
Ultimate retirement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
we
is
all like to
awesome.
think that we have a part in you and your support of the cruise industry, Jim, because before
Wow.
that, allegedly, you didn't go anywhere like that. So, and we're of course we're tickled pink that he's out there flying around and doing all that. But and I'm available for lunch again, Jim. He even stopped by once and bought me lunch in Phoenix on his way
Jim just
to.
said, he said, I was home for 22 days,
Geez.
22 whole days.
Does
Just-
he have a question we
Still
can't answer?
wondering me back.
There's a thunderstorm question. What happens if a thunderstorm is over the airport where we're supposed to land? So that's the question. What
You're gonna
happens
get
if a-
wet.
if- Go ahead, Ron.
I'm sorry, that was a smart aleck. You're going to get wet, but you're going to be in the airplane, so you won't get wet, but everybody else, all right. So I assume they're asking if it's like severe weather or something like that. Well, first of all, we would have known it well in advance, and well in advance on a thunderstorm could be as little as 2 or 3 minutes because they can build rapidly. But you have to realize we have real-time information there. Right, Eric? We don't sit around holding or flipping a coin thinking should we give it a shot or not give it a shot. We know a lot of information. Like, go ahead, Eric.
We're highly likely, we anticipated that could happen. The conditions would indicate that was a possibility, and we're fueled for that, for holding fuel, for alternates, that sort of thing. And if the timing works out, so the thunderstorm shows up exactly where when we were going to, then we're going to hold somewhere away from the airport and maybe 50 miles away or 100 miles away, and air traffic control will have the airplanes hold until it moves off. We're not going to land in the teeth of a thunderstorm until the conditions at the field are such that they're good at the field and that we can get around it. We're not going to put our nose in there. There's no motivation for the pilots to do so. And while we're holding, and you're worrying, we're getting paid extra for it. So we're very happy about that whole situation.
And
So,
we might get diverted to an alternate too. I mean, I wound
Yeah,
up,
we have
I wound
specific.
up, I wound
we
up
have
one time in Tucson, and we were supposed to be going back to Phoenix. And another time I wound up in Los Angeles when we were supposed to be landing in San Luis Obispo. So, I mean,
Yeah, we have some specific things that we do, and you can find these in the 201 online course. Crew training, we learn escape and avoidance maneuvers. Okay, escape is a very specific flight profile that we fly once we either judge for ourselves that the situation deems that we get the hell out of there, or we get an alert from instrumentation in the cockpit. And now it's called it's different. It's not the old name, the not private warning thunderstorm positive. It's kind of they've upgraded the equipment basically since you and I were there, Eric, and they especially on the wide body airplanes. But escape and avoid maneuvers, weather radar, special instrumentation in the cockpit, air traffic control either reroutes or delays traffic, as Diane said. She got sent to Tucson, and we use weather reporting services like ATIS. We have a continuous radio transmission from every airport that we land in called ATIS, Airport Terminal Information Service. Yeah, and it is, and they have it every hour. They change it typically if it's routine. But if they were to get a sudden growth of a thunderstorm, something like that, they will interrupt it and update it. Kind of like you get a weather bulletin, it flashes on your cell phone. So that's what we do when there's severe weather. And those things we train for, not just when they're at the airport and we're landing, but when we're in the airport and we're departing, or when we're going from point to point in cruise as well.
And what Ron's talking about when he said that escape, he's using words that are maneuvers we execute should we be so unfortunate as to enter a wind shear situation, as enunciated by the airplane, telling us that we are in a wind shear envelope, and then we're going to fly the airplane a certain way to escape that situation. And that's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
There are times too, on the reverse, when you're not landing, but you are departing, and everybody gets on the plane and we do our announcements and whatever, and maybe all of a sudden, as they said, storms can materialize very quickly and they can move quickly. And so all of a sudden, it's been raining and all of a sudden now it's lightning. So then that is a completely different set of instructions and what the airport, not just the airline, but what the airport does. I've been on a couple different times, 3 or 4 times actually, when we've been on the plane board getting ready to push back, that sort of thing. And a storm has come up so severely that they literally close the airport and no one goes anywhere. And so but that's just another safety. That's another safety precaution. So no one's going to go anywhere when the weather is that dangerous. That's just kind of what we're all saying.
So let's talk a little bit about it. In the last couple of weeks, I did a class. Well, I did the monthly class at the Phoenix Airport on Saturday night, and had a young woman who had gotten off a flight. Had another fellow that I've been coaching and working with who had gotten off the flight. He stayed back in Phoenix, and his wife and 2 daughters went on to Hawaii. Very disappointing, and he felt defeated and all that. And so I've had a lot more interest in talking about how do you get over basically anticipatory anxiety. And so what I just want to touch on this, and we're not going to go into in great detail this, because we're going to cover this in the monthly coaching session as well, or an upcoming version of that. And it's called top-down versus bottom-up learning. And so top-down refers to the fact that bottom-up and top-down processing are 2 different ways that we make sense of stimuli coming into the body. In the bottom-up processing, we allow the stimulus itself to shape our perception. So that's a critical thing to remember, is when you're drawing upon and making decisions based on bottom-up thinking, and this isn't something that you automatically can control. This is where education makes a big difference. Not unlike what we just did when we talked about what happens if there's a thunderstorm over the airport. But when you experience bottom-up stimulation, you have these feelings, the biology inside you. You just have this gut-wrenching feeling. And it's not based on preconceived ideas or anything like that. It's just a decision that you make based on the emotional intensity. In top-down processing, that's where we use background knowledge, like the knowledge that we just passed along to you about what we actually do when we have adverse weather in the form of thunderstorms there. And just in a nutshell, I'll give you an example. So many of you walk into the as you're boarding, you look in the cockpit, and if you look in there, you see a whole bunch of stuff that looks like this in there, and it means virtually nothing to any of you. And in just most of you, without even thinking about it, you brush up against overwhelm, because you look at all those switches, all those gauges, all those the glass cockpit displays, and there's a part of your brain that says, "Oh my gosh, how could 1 or 2 people ever have a clue as to what those do?" And so that's a bottom-up trigger. Another bottom-up trigger: you're sitting there and you watch them close the door. You don't know what that means on a grander scale. You don't know how to close the door, most of you, or worse, how to open it. But all of a sudden, you feel that rush of emotions inside, and you've just been overwhelmed by bottom-up learning. So that's why we offer 2 specific ways of dealing with those triggers, and we Of course, fundamentally, one of them is the top down. That's why Eric and Diane and I and Dieter, we talk about cognitive behavioral techniques. We talk about that as a part of psychology, and we talk about the basics of flight. We talk about strategies that you can learn, all things that can influence and tend to minimize some of the bottom-up triggers that you get. But for bottom-up triggers, that's where you get into the realm of learning non-technical strategies, pure techniques like breathing, like holding your breath, like doing the HRV breathing, the in for 4 and out for 6. Those are the kinds of things that impact that part of your physical manifestations. And they directly relate to your ability to call upon your parasympathetic nervous system to calm yourself down a little bit. So I just wanted to touch on that, because we get inevitably people are the thing that keeps people off of off the airplane more than anything else is anticipatory anxiety. And no matter how you wrap it, it's being afraid, not just being afraid of your fear, but being afraid of the emotions that you will experience. And we've all been there in some light where you've had an unpleasant experience in your past, and it was so, like a breakup in a relationship, or a dental experience, or injuring yourself or something like that. And the thought of going through that again is more than you can handle, or at least it challenges your ability to handle it. And nothing equals an experience like that than a bad experience on an airplane, or just the mystique about flying and what happens when we can't pull off the side of the road at 35,000 feet. So, like I said, we'll be talking more about these in the coaching classes. If you have not ever been to one of our monthly live coaching classes, recommend that you do that. This would be a great one this week. And to watch the live event, or as we said, you can, or the live stream, or just do the live stream on its own. You're going to get the coaching class with no matter which way you go this week, or next week, this month, because that's what we're going to do. I've had quite a few numbers of 15-minute coaching sessions. I want to always make sure I recommend that. If you have not done a 15-minute coaching session, I'm not sure why you would not do it, but please consider that, because it's the start for most people out there. That's the way most people get a handle on that. Let's see.
I have a question coming from Avery, and that's going back to the thunderstorms. Like, why do they keep us on the tarmac for so long when there is bad weather? So
that was the number one question on Saturday night. Delays, for as much as, if you have an anxiety disorder or flight anxiety, for as much as you abhor the idea of getting on that stupid thing and then flying, once we get you on there and shut the door, the attitude changes to, let's get the hell out of here. So any delay that we experience after that is overwhelming for people. And why? Because we have this negative bias that says it can't be good. And so we had a really neat supervisor from Southwest that was with us on Saturday night, and she went into a lot of detail about just some of the things that happen from a customer service point of view, why we get delayed out there, and it was very informative to all the people there. But there are a number of things operationally, down the road. You're sitting there, and they announce, or you overhear somebody say, well, there's a weather delay, and you look out in Phoenix and there's not a cloud in the sky. Why is that, Eric? What the hell is going on?
Well, we may not be able to see a cloud in the sky, but there was one somewhere, and so we stopped on the ground and parked, waiting until our departure corridor was clear, or deemed clear so they can start getting all the departures in the air. And part of the reason you may wait such a long time, even though it's good to go, is remember we were talking about the airplanes holding away from the airport 20, 50, and 100 miles away. They have a lot of gas for holding and they have gas to go the alternate, but they got to land somewhere for eventually, and they prefer to land at the destination. So if they've been out there waiting, they need to prioritize a little bit getting those airplanes on the ground before we can get off in the air. So we might wait longer than we would have otherwise so they can recover holding aircraft, even though you look out the window and go, man, that looks fine. But it'll be it is a priority to get the holding aircraft on the ground and to make sure that we have a safe corridor after departure.
And the entire
Like what-
air
Like
traffic,
what Eric said, that we're making more money when we're sitting there. We don't want to sit there either. I mean, we want to go somewhere and get where we're going. So it's not that the crew, the pilots and the flight attendants are trying to see how much we can torture you. We just, it's as Eric said, and it's just not safe, or we got to wait for our own turn. It's like being on a ramp and trying to get on the freeway. You've got to wait till the light turns green for you before you go anywhere. So.
And I was trying to stifle myself because there was somebody there really worried about that sitting on the ground. But now that Diane brought it up, it's even better getting paid on the ground because we don't have to do anything. We shut down the engines and just run the APU and the air conditioner and talk to you guys every 10 minutes and tell you baseball scores and what's going on, that sort of thing. We don't really have to actively manage the airplane when the parking brake's set. It's not going anywhere, but we're still getting paid. So you don't have to worry about that.
Boring, though. We want to go somewhere too.
and the air traffic control, the system, when I entered the airlines in 1978, it wasn't as sophisticated as now in terms of control. So every air traffic control center, of which there are a dozen, I think, in the US, controlled their airspace, and they had limited ability to talk to each other. Now it's all done by Washington, DC, and they control all of the flow. So if you're sitting on the ground in Chicago or in Phoenix and you're waiting to go to Chicago, and there's a big old thunderstorm or a big old cold front that goes through Kansas and in Oklahoma, and it blocks a large section of the country in terms of the routes, now it's like getting on a freeway. There's too many airplanes trying to get on a finite bit of airspace up there. So what they do is we do metering. So you look outside when you're getting on a freeway in Phoenix and you got a red light and a green light, you go on the green light so that we don't keep turning it into a parking lot. We have the equivalent. You're sitting on the ramp and you wait for Washington to give you a slot time and then release you at the runway there. Because in the 30, 40 years ago, what we did is we burned a lot of fuel. And then we had the Arab-Israeli war, and then the price of fuel went up forever, and it's never gone down, essentially. So we don't delay anymore any more than we have to. I mean, I can't think of the last 10 years, 15 years of my career. I don't think I ever did a turn and holding. Most I would get maybe a little vector, a delay vector behind somebody, but no more holding, and it affects the bottom line. So anyway, okay, that's a great question. Anything else, Peter?
Well, I think what I can't be 100% certain, but I think what this question, and we had a couple of those questions last week as well, what they're both going after is that traumatic experience of the 7-hour delay on the ground in July. I think that is really what I think the trauma is really coming from that, not necessarily that everyone is delayed. I also believe there is FAA regulations around sitting on the tarmac, and I mean, I'm gonna
3
say
hours still.
Sorry?
3 hours, no more than 3 hours still.
Yeah. So the whole 7-hour thing, that is such a massive, great media thing. And I do feel sorry for these people in the airplane. But the reality is there are thousands of planes taking off every single day. And that one is the one that everybody's still talking about. And I don't even know what kind of a plane it was, but maybe there were 150 people in there, maybe 100. I really don't know. My point is, don't let that stop you or keep feeding your fear of why you can't fly, because it has nothing to do. That event has nothing to do with your own decision that you're making in this moment of how you're gonna approach your next flight, what you're gonna do to prepare, how you're gonna prepare for it. And that's way more important than these poor people that were stuck on that one flight back in July.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, but again, it's a very isolated incident, not going to happen. The laws that changed as a result of that was I think there were two. One was Northwest, when they were still in business, they had a big snowstorm in Detroit, and the other one was JetBlue up in Kennedy years ago. And I feel sorry for them, because when it snows and the ramps congested and everybody's sitting there, nobody can go anywhere. There's not enough space to put everybody in. And so but now they have to look at that, because I think it's still a $10,000 per person fine, which unfortunately the people on the airplane don't get it. It goes to the FAA.
The airlines have an equivalent fear that you do of getting stuck. And
they do.
Bombed it into our heads that, well, number one, the rule is you don't have to get off, but you have to be offered the chance to deplane by the time 3 hours have passed. So at 2 hours and 30 minutes, the airline will start to panic and move gates and move people taxiing out of the way so the airplane can burn rubber, turn around, and park back at the gate. Because if you pop that, and the FAA loves that because that's their money, if you blow that by a minute and don't give the passengers a chance to get off, that's $27,500 per passenger, and they will come get their money.
Yeah. And it's so important that we've talked about a function called dispatch. These are ground special employees that specialize in aviation planning, and they're the ones that are working on the job before Eric and I ever show up to the airplane. And there is they have a special desk when they see problems developing like that, that a given person starts to monitor individual airplanes and make sure that they well before they get to 3 hours, that they're aware of options that they can get them out of there.
And I've heard people, individuals say, well, why, if we're on not on the runway, but if we're on a taxiway or in the alley or something, why can't they just open the door and let us off? Well, that's a safety. I mean, if there was an emergency, that's a different situation. But if you are, not to mention
being 4 miles from the airport.
I mean, there are planes and ramp vehicles and trucks and all kinds of vehicles all around the airport. It's like ants. And so they can't just say, okay, we're just going to open the door and let 150 people out. Plus, it's a security hazard too. So there's a lot of different reasons for all the things that Eric and Ron are talking about, why things have to happen the way they do.
And even if we could open the door and get you off, that first step is a killer, because it's about 12 feet to 15 feet, depending on the airplane you're on. So we have to have air stairs for 90% of the airplanes that are out there flying. So you can't just let anybody off there, and you got to get a bus out there through traffic to them. So it's a sticky wicket if you're in an airplane in an airport. There's only a couple of ways to get on and get off, unless if we want to get you off in a real hurry, we pop the doors and pop the slides, but that causes a lot more problems than it fixes. So
I'm going to bring that up, and conceptually that seems like a great idea, especially if you grabbed a drink from the galley on the way down. But when you look at the door at the angle on that slide and how long it is, you're screaming down that thing onto the pavement. And if you look out the door at that, suddenly it doesn't seem like as good of an idea as it was when you got up to get off the airplane.
And I bet you it's a lot of paperwork.
Yes.
Oh, and those slides, then they have to put new slides on, and those things cost a fortune. The slides cost a lot of money.
Yep. And they're made here in Phoenix, I think, largely. So,
really? That's kind of cool.
Okay. So, barring any further questions, we
nope. I don't see any.
So you've just survived another episode of Fearless Flight Live. We appreciate the questions and the interaction. Keep those cards and letters coming, folks, and cop that link to the live stream and give it a strong consideration. We'd love to have as many people as possible in the audience when we do that on the night of the 20th. So have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you back here next week for Fearless Flight Live. Bye-bye.